Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to this, the end of the year 1985 as we know it. Sure, it ended 35 years ago, but tonight it's going to end one more time when me, Ryan, host of the show, along with Greg and Mike, co-host of the show. You guys are my co-hosts, right?
I think so.
But I'm the host and you two are co-hosts.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's mostly contractual and pay and residuals.
You sit in the pilot seat, and then we both sit in the co-pilot seat.
Yeah,
How about this?
in each other's laps.
Where me, Ryan, host senior, and Greg and Mike, host junior, are going to decide what is the single greatest film of 1980, or what is the 85iest film of 1985.
Lady Bird. Lady Bird.
Gentlemen,
Lady Hawk.
Yeah.
wait, did you? God damn it, Mike. Just say the right thing. Say the words that you think.
Never have, never will.
If this is your first episode of Movie of the Year, if you saw, oh, look at this part 2, I will listen to this first. Thank you for being here, I guess. But in part 1, we gave out some awards, and we eliminated 4 movies. Not eligible any longer for winning the 1985 Movie of the Year is Mishima, The Goonies, Ron, and After Hours. And I would just like to, gentlemen, before we get into the meat of the show, I would like to give you each a moment to choose one of those 4 movies, and we'll start with you, Greg. Mishima, Goonies, Ron, and After Hours, and talk about it. Tell us what it meant to you throughout this season.
I guess Mishima is probably the one I'm going to go with, because I was kind of surprised that didn't make it, and I think I was a little bit blinded by how into it I was, and just by the fact that it's a hard sell as a, like, the 1985 movie Mishima. Oh yeah, no one could talk about 85 without talking about Mishima, A Life in 4 Chapters. But I haven't seen a ton of really good movies, and this is a really good movie, and it really stuck with me. It's full of decisions that Paul Schrader really stands behind, and you can disagree with them, like staging things on sound stages and really drawing your attention to how artificial the setting is. Or you can just go with it, and I found the more I went with it, the more into it I was, and it was just a very transporting movie.
If that's your comment after watching Mishima is, I thought the stagey parts were stagey, then you should probably watch a couple more movies. Mike, Mishima, Goonies, Ron, and After Hours are all gone. What are you feeling right now?
I guess I'll talk about After Hours, because I feel like because it was first, it kind of got forgotten, and Greg was very clear that there was no way over his dead cold body it would ever go far.
I guess I kneecapped that movie pretty hard.
But it's just the kind of movie that's so up my butt, like an adventure that takes place in one night, and there's that dream quality. I hate dream segments in movies, but if the whole movie is sort of dreamlike, I'm all in, because that's just unfortunately who I am. And everybody thinks they know what Scorsese does. It's, oh yeah, gangster shit, cool. And for him to flex, and there's a fun excitement there that he's figuring out what he's doing and having fun with it.
That's all great, Mike. Way to go. But let me tell you about a dream I had last night where I was reading a book. It was a new conspiracy thriller by Rob Lowe, and he sat there and watched me read it the entire time I was reading it. What do you guys think that means?
That you've been watching a little low?
Parks and Rec as you fall asleep?
Both are true. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to give out so many more Moody Awards, and then also figure out what is the single greatest movie of 1985.
Well, that is very, very funny, or very sad, and perhaps now you have something to think about, or very problematic, and perhaps we have something to think about. But in any event, I'm sure you have some reaction to what you're listening to, so why not check us out on the social media? You can go to Instagram or Twitter and find us at YourPopFilter. Email contacts@YourPopFilter. Hey, everybody. Keep watching them movies.
Before, guys, there's so much pressure. I want to put it off right now. We have 4 movies. 3 of them have to go away. Let's do something else instead. Let's give out some Moodies for 1985. The first one is On-Screen Duo. Your first nominee, Greg, is Marty and Doc from Back to the Future.
Marty, we're the first duo. This is amazing. This is iconic. I mean, I don't know if iconic takes the award, but if you think duos from 85, this is probably the first place you go. And it's well earned. They perform not just well individually, but they do well as a team.
Yeah, it's so iconic. There is now a famous and popular cartoon based on that duo.
Yeah, just the two of them, basically. And like you said, Ryan, you said this on the last episode, but it bears repeating, and I just like repeating the things you say. Like
Greg.
The movie allows you to not spend too much time thinking about why this 60-year-old and 16-year-old are friends, because they have such a nice like colloquy.
Yeah, the part I'll mention based on that, Greg, is not how Doc Brown did not paint his buildings, and I do bring that up from time to time. But
We're obsessed with that.
It's when Marty's mom comes over to their workshop, and Doc lets him in, and then gives Marty the biggest wide-eyed, like, "What the fuck are we doing here?" look. I'm just like, these guys have a connection, and I appreciate it. I'm here for it. Mike, the next nominee is from Brazil. It's Spoor and Dowser. So now the other non-Bob Hoskins guy is getting his due on-screen duo.
Yeah, it's Bob Hoskins and Hob Bobskins, and what they do is just really like that cruel low level. They're not even middle management, just like are just reveling in any amount of little power they have over somebody, but in such a charming way. Like, charming way to watch. I wouldn't want to be a part of it.
Like, in the same way that, like, the police are today, right? They're, like,
That's not fun to watch, though.
That's less fun. Are they less charming?
They might be less charming.
Greg, the next nominee is from The Color Purple. It's Celie and Nettie, those two sisters. And we don't have a lot of screen time with them, but here they are on-screen duo.
Yeah, the whole movie kind of exists because of the love between the two of them. In the book, it's told as letters back and forth between the two of them. But that's like the glimmer of hope is their love for each other. And there's so many dark passages of this movie, but the glimmer of hope is always that they will find each other again. And as awful as it is to see them torn apart, that moment where they come back together is more emotional and more beautiful. For, you know, the pain that they went through.
Mike, you agree?
I concur.
It's weird that it's called On-Screen Duo. I think that's a throwback to the MTV Movie Awards, but if it didn't say that, if it was on and off-screen duo, like, then they would win, right? Like,
yeah, well,
it's what
the
carries
pranks
the entire
we know
movie.
Nettie and Celie played throughout the set.
Mike, the next nominee is Celie and Shug, also from The Color Purple.
Yeah, it's so interesting because it starts off kind of antagonistic, and then how it blossoms into like mentor mentee, but then they both mentor each other at different times. Like, they both help each other grow, and there's something really beautiful about watching that.
Yeah, it would have been nicer if they got a little bit more time in the movie to follow that relationship, because it's really complex and it has twists and turns and it evolves. But I feel like the spirit of it really is captured in the movie, and it's a sweet and supportive kind of love for each other that is like sexual, but also kind of sisterly, and then just ultimately like a love that wants to build up and develop. And that's what we see Celie kind of like almost transformed by the love of Shug, really.
Your final nominee is Floria and Gasha from Come and See.
Oh, gosh.
These two went through some shit.
Yeah, I think that's what they're just like clinging to each other because life is so horrific, and you see how that could bring people together very quickly and very closely. Like they gain a shorthand, and she's short shrifted. Like, she goes away early on as well.
What we get from them almost is a vision of like an Adam and Eve at the moments where they're kicked out of the garden. You know, like,
oh shit, Greg.
They only have each other, and they have no idea how to make sense of what's going on in the world, and they're ultimately doomed and condemned to toil, and then to finally just be kind of like ground up, or to develop the ability to move on their own and change in whatever way that means. And so the two of them together are like, by virtue of that, like classically a duo. You know, they're like the original duo.
Yeah, I do think this is a lot like Celie and Nettie in that, like, it's on and off screen. It's like Gasha changes Floria's life forever, for better or worse. You know, like, even though it seemed like Floria had so little, like, power in anything that happened in the movie, meeting Gasha was just still this like milestone moment. All right, gentlemen, your nominees are Marty and Doc from Back to the Future, Spoor and Dowser from Brazil, Celie and Nettie from The Color Purple, Celie and Shug from The Color Purple, and Floria and Gasha from Come and See. What are we thinking here?
Yeah, I think it was said it early on and often enough that it's got to be Marty and Doc, right?
It's the part where you pointed out, Mike, where they made a whole TV show that is like so famous right now, just based on the nature of that relationship and how unusual it is.
And your
But
winner
I'm gonna go
is
Suge and Seeley. Come on, Suge and Seeley. Come on, Suge and Seeley.
it is Marty and Doc from Back
Darn
to the
it.
Future.
Darn
I'm
it!
good at this.
Just had to get in there and say my wrong answer first.
Yeah, it seemed like you're going right.
Guys, I'm
Juke
still
left.
not ready to cut any movies. Let's do another award. Your next movie is for musical moment.
Love it.
Your first nominee, Mike, is Back to the Future. It's Earth Angel and Johnny Be Good.
This was like, I don't know for you guys, this is seminal in my childhood. I think this helped make me into rock music. And for all the thievery that would then also come with it. But
He said your kids are going to love it. You're those kids.
I was those kids, and it was a little too intense for my parents. But it to pack in like one, it's fun to watch this 2-song duo, and it's so much of a character arc in 1 and 2 of him being the most nervous he's been because he's literally disappearing to confident enough to lead a band, a thing he would never be able to do this whole time, to the point that he's overconfident and freaks everybody out. I relate to that, and I love it, and I think it's a flawless 5-minute part of a movie.
Greg?
Hard to argue with that. I do have to say, it feels like this scene from this movie is one of my earliest memories. And that's a weird thing about some of these movies, is that like I'm not sure I can remember events from my own life that predate like this scene from this movie, but I feel like I can remember the first time I ever saw it and being like, shit, his hand is disappearing and that's what he uses to play guitar. So the indelible quality of that has to be worth something.
Yeah, I would say that there was a time in my life where I knew for a fact there was 3 songs only, and it was Earth Angel, Johnny Be Good, and Twist and Shout, because Ferris Bueller sung it on a parade float. Your next nominee is from Back to the Future. It's Marty's talent show, where we get to see Michael J. Fox perform Huey Lewis in front of Huey Lewis.
Good,
It's just
Greg?
too damn loud.
good for this moment that it made. I do have to say that is like a funny note that it's Huey Lewis. Although watching the movie in the years after 1985, not many people remember who that is. But the movie still gives you the impression that you're seeing a non-actor, and the movie's leaning on like, can you believe you're seeing this guy? And so then you're just the only conclusion you can come to is like, that's Huey Lewis.
Or like, is it Michael J. Fox in like a
Makeup.
fat suit or something? Yeah, what's going on here?
That'd be awesome.
You would know that it was Michael J. Fox in a fast suit if when it cut to him there was a record scratch.
You might ask yourself what I'm doing here. Mike, the next one is Bender's Hand in the Air from The Breakfast Club. Hey, hey,
Yeah.
hey, hey.
I mean, it's the most iconic.
Hey, Greg, can you hit the mute button if you have to yawn, please? Jesus Christ.
It's the most iconic part of this movie. Is recreated so many times, and put
this
the Simple
movie.
Minds on the map. And they are a boring band with a boring song, but this little part makes you think it's a great moment.
Yeah, this is almost like if you went to the movie music moment Hall of Fame, this might be in there.
All right. What about this one then? I can't believe this is nominated. It's from The Breakfast Club. It's We Are Not Alone. It's when they all dance together in their museum of a detention center.
I don't like this moment. This whole movie is obviously like, deeply informed by music videos, and it gets that other moment perfectly right. But this moment, you're like, where am I in reality? Is this really happening? Are they dancing, but they're dancing differently than this in real life? Or are they really breaking windows and like dancing on balustrades? Like, what's going on here?
And this
They're
is
all
before
dancing like Molly Ringwald.
this is before they smoke weed, which is weird because this is clearly the kind of fucking shit you losers do when you smoke weed, breaking windows and dancing like with each other.
The devil's lettuce.
It did give me my finishing move of any time I dance is I yell until glass breaks.
Oh, good. What was your old finishing move?
I just punch the window.
It's always so monumental when Mike gets a new finishing move. Your final nominee, Mike, is from The Color Purple. It's Ms. Seeley's Blues.
Yeah, it's part of the movie that cements their relationship. She is not just cares about Celie, but cares so much that she will maybe lose stock by publicly admitting to people that she cares about Celie, which is not popular in this film. And to watch Celie's face go from like embarrassed to just glowing It's nice. You'd love it.
And it's a nice song, and that that's the moment we see Celie go from like she's been literally rendered as a shadow many times, and so to have all the attention be on her in such a sweet way, and it's like they're with everybody, but they're really just there together alone. It's one of the more emotional moments in the movie. There's a real like misty moment.
Mm-hmm.
All right, guys, we have Earth Angel and Huey Lewis from Back to the Future. We have Bender's Hand in the Air and We Are Not Alone from Breakfast Club. And we've got The Color Purple's Miss Celie's Blues. Greg, who's taking us down, do you think?
It's got to be The Hand in the Air. I mean, that is just such a classic moment. It's bigger than the movie itself.
Mike?
I think it's Earth Angel, Johnny Be Good.
And your winner for Musical Moment of 1985 is Miss Celie's Blues from The Color Purple. I'm so glad you two were wrong. This is the best part of the movie by far.
That's true. I mean, that part is definitely true. Like, this is it's perfectly staged. You want to be in that juke joint so bad.
Even though you're sweating so much.
And The Color Purple won an award that wasn't for Miss Millie. So that's a good thing for the Moodies tonight.
Hell yeah.
We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to see which one of these next two movies makes it to the final. Hey, guys, thank you so much for listening so far. And let me just tell you that everything ahead of this commercial is much better than what came before it. That's my guarantee. While I have you here, let me tell you about a website. It's called yourpopfilter.com, and it's everything you need that's related to Pop Filter. Everything Mike, everything Ryan, everything Greg, everything Cassie, everything is there at yourpopfilter.com. While you're there, go to yourpopfilter.com/Amazon. Make that your new Amazon bookmark and do your shopping from there. That way, we get a little piece of the action, and Amazon doesn't. Make sure you're also listening to everything that Pop Filter has to offer, which includes the Superhero Show, a podcast that covers every single TV show that's based on a comic book or comic book property, and Movie of the Year, where we sit down and try and figure out what is the single greatest movie of any given year. That's Superhero Show, that's Movie of the Year, and that's yourpopfilter.com. Rate, subscribe, review. Bye. Your number 1 seed is Back to the Future. Your number 5 seed is Come and See. This is what it's all about, gentlemen. This is the Movie of the Yeariest thing that we have ever done. I think it's clear that one movie is better, one movie is more 1985, one movie is more iconic. They're both in film history. They're both life-changing. Like, what are you even thinking right now?
I personally am thinking that I am glad that you guys are here because I think you help me not make stupid decisions that are not within the spirit, or rather I make the stupid decisions and then you guys just outvote me.
We just ignore you.
But this is, again, Ryan, you said it, like, it's not a question of which is the better movie. That part is so clear and it couldn't be more clear, but that would be boring if that were our only criteria for how we decide. And it seems like it gets, Come and See is obviously the better movie. I think it gets absolutely swamped in maybe every other category that we talk about on this show by one of the biggest movies of all time, right?
It's hard. I don't know where this even comes into play. That Come and See might be the best movie I've ever seen that I absolutely never want to watch again. And I don't know what to do with that information. It is a brutal viewing. I'm so glad I watched it. It's burned into my brain.
And it's those two things that you said, Mike. It's the best movie you've ever seen that, like, you would actively avoid seeing again. Mm-hmm. And it's, I mean, that legacy is something. It's not nothing. And I'm not saying it matters as much as anything else, but, like, it's something, right?
It is something, right, Mike? Are you saying that Come and See does have more merit than The Goonies, which has zero merit?
Yes.
Okay.
She ran by in the background as a young kid.
I honestly, like, I'll never forget the time I watched Come and See, which, again, was the first time was for this season. It's in my top 10 movie watching experiences. Like, regardless, like, I don't know where that puts it on my final list of great movies, but and I sort of can't wait to watch it again because there's so much that I wasn't able to explore or was forced to ignore because of the atrocities that I saw. Mm-hmm. There's probably so much great filmmaking going on in there that I couldn't, like, take note of because of what I was forced to go through by watching that movie. And I do think that this is even different than Mishima because I mean, I like to Come and See a lot more than Mishima, but also Come and See over the last 30 years has developed this following of like, sorry Americans that like it's not in English, but this is one of those movies that is on the have to watch list, and Mishima never made it to that level, and yet there's Back to the Future.
I have to say one thing I wanted to point out about Come and See, because we talked about Ron last week. One way in which Come and See I appreciate even more, having seen a movie like Ron, is Kurosawa is known for these huge deployments of people as troops, and I think that he does that in Ron, and it works really well. Come and See, we don't just see those soldiers on another hill or down in a valley. We move through them, and I wouldn't have known before I had seen both movies how affecting that is, the difference between moving through a formation of troops as they walk versus just watching it on a like another hill or something, and how much more complicated that must be to move all those people and then also move through them. It's a technically like stunning achievement as well.
Do you know what it felt like, dude? It felt like somebody went up to Clint Eastwood and said, "Hey, you're making a war movie. Can I also make a war movie while you're doing it?" And while Clint Eastwood is shooting his like big, all of these soldiers on a hill and these wide shots, there's somebody else inside there getting the other angle that we don't ever see from any other movie.
I want
that mirrors
to watch. I want that to happen for real.
And that it mirrors the meaning of the movie, right? Which is that, like, I'm going to bring you into this. So, like, you are going to not just be loaded into barns, but also sometimes you're going to be marching with Nazi troops.
Yeah, I mean, Ron, even if partially was anti-war, it still can't stop being like, but isn't war so gloriful? That's a word. And what Come and See does is look at the chaos of just being in a war camp and it just moves through that. Like, you feel Flauva, what's his name? Floria. His overwhelmedness from the chaos when he first enters, like, the quote unquote good troops. Like, it's already overwhelming there, and that's just the beginning.
But yeah, I think in the Come and See show we talked about, and I think, Greg, this was one of your initial points, is that I don't even know if it is anti-war. Like, I think at the end of it, you're sort of thinking that, like, it is sometimes necessary and sorry, and instead of proving that war is bad, I'm just going to prove that it's not all just step on the edge of your gun when it's on the ground, it flies in the air, you catch it perfectly, and you kill people who are only evil. It's just a shit show the entire time. Mm-hmm. Sure, maybe it has to happen, but it's fucking terrible, and there's very little heroic about it.
And that the bad guys are a mix of people who are like, they're making us do this as much as it's happening to you. And then one guy who steps forward, and I think this is really important, especially for this time, one guy who steps forward and says, like, actually, I'm doing this because I am trying to eradicate all you people.
Right.
Like, I don't need to lie about why I'm doing this. I'm doing this because basically I think you're bad, and so I'm going to just do whatever it takes. And that sort of, like, multiple reasons for why people are committed to a cause in the evil cause, I thought was a very interesting moment. And I find that that's, of all the terrible things that happen in Come and See, that shot of just that guy saying, actually, I think you're vermin and you should be eradicated, that's like the thing that I think, for whatever reason, got burned into me. And that's the moment I keep seeing, because I keep thinking when I see evil in the real world, that there really are people who are just like, very like, they do think of themselves as kind of bad. They do think like they're willing to do awful things, and they know they're willing to do awful things. They're just being like protected by people who like to virtue signal while they do evil things.
Right. And then on the flip side, we have Back to the Future, where I think the big question is, it's such a different movie, and its goals are very different. I don't know if we've ever compared two more different movies, but is Back to the Future, we know it's more iconic, but is it of a quality where it can compete here?
Yeah, I think it's the whole, you set your own bar. And I think Back to the Future, except for the one infamous scene, and by infamous I mean infamous in these parts only, that Doc falling off the clock tower is like, other than that, there's not like a shaky moment in the film. It just motors and does everything it wants to do really well.
It is a movie that seems like it has a sort of a cleaned up version of this weird cult of sexual assault that was like very much in the, and I don't even know how much cleaned up it is, right? Like, there is a lot of like near sexual assault and almost sexual assault. There's a whole plan that revolves around Marty pretending to sexually assault his own mom. So obviously that's a deeply troubling part of the movie. That's like one weakness I could see that potentially, or one thing I didn't see when I first watched it that I thought about a lot more watching it recently.
I think you could argue that they're knowingly, like filmmakers are knowingly playing with 80s tropes, because when Marty says that to Crispin Glover gives Marty the look we all gave that scene. Like, why?
Yeah, I think that, but like, Greg, you said weakness and then you corrected yourself. It's hard to know how much it was intentional and was not, but I still think it makes it interesting in a different way. You know, it's like it's not stuff that I noticed about, but it's stuff that I love talking about with you guys when we did the show. And I just think it's an amazing, very interesting movie on a bunch of different levels. Guys, it's time. Mike, we're starting with you. Back to the Future, or Come and See, as Movie of the Year 1985 finalist.
I think to capture everything that could mean, it has to be Back to the Future for me.
Greg?
I want to agree with Mike, but one of these movies is just so important, and it's Come and See. And
this is fucking bullshit. This is fucking
yes,
dog shit.
Thanks, Greg. No, it's all on him.
Oh man, you guys both have great arguments. It makes me self-reflect on my entire life and what it means to be on this show. And I have to 3, 2, 1 say Back to the Future. I'm going to say Back to the Future. Motherfuck. If you have not seen Come and See, please
come and see.
Find it somehow. Strap in and get it watched because you will be forever changed. But I think Back to the Future is going to go to the 85 finals. Fuck.
Don't. And
okay.
About Come and See, now that we're like finally done with it and we're not going to talk about it anymore, I feel like maybe we discouraged people from seeing it by some of us saying constantly that we probably only see it this one time. I would say do the one viewing. It really is worth it. It's not just because the subject matter is like capital I important. It's also a really well-made movie, and it's doing things that like no other movie really does. It makes you feel so uncomfortable all the time, but it will get inside your brain in such a way that's not just painful. It's a way that also is like opening you up to experience part of the world that probably as a human you should have some experience with.
That's, I think, that's the best point, really, Greg, is that, yes, it's about an important thing, and therefore it's automatically good, and we go through this all of the time, and that makes it hard to watch, and you're like, what? This actually wasn't that long ago, but really it's the filmmaking. You have never seen filmmaking like this, and if you're a film fan, there's got to be points in your life where you're like, I'm going to sit through the stuff that might not be Adam Sandler-esque and go through an experience, and it's not just you won't look at humans or whatever in the same way again. It's movies, like it's one of those milestone movies.
And if you're a film fan who really only watches Adam Sandler movies, I think your mind's going to get blown with what film can mean.
Sorry, what I meant to say is only Adam Sandler on Netflix movies.
Oh.
That's the film fan I was talking to.
I love the idea that this person only listens to Adam Sandler or only watches Adam Sandler movies and then also listens to our podcast.
Yeah.
Maybe if the Sandman had been in it.
All right, we do have to take a break, and we have to say goodbye to Come and See in our own ways. When we come back, a couple more awards, and we're going to kick out one more movie.
I'm going to shoot a cow. Hola, Filterinos. I just wanted to interrupt real briefly and say thank you for listening. Thank you for your support. If you want to support us a little more directly, you can go to patreon.com/yourpopfilter. There, depending on what tier you pick, $1 a month, $5 a month. If you're crazy, anything more than $5 a month, don't do that. You can get extra content. There's extra shows, extra series, behind-the-scenes stuff. You could pay for Ryan to draw you a picture. I can write you a poem. You can get the shirts off our very own backs. All of that and so much more over at patreon.com/yourpopfilter. While you're on the internet, you should check out Shady Monk. He does all the tunes you've been listening to. He's on Bandcamp, he's on Spotify, SoundCloud, wherever kids get their music these days that I'm too old to know. Shady Monk lives there. You can probably follow him on Twitter and Instagram as well. That's Shady Monk. Wherever you get music, check him out.
And we're back. Come and See is gone. Back to the Future moves on. Let's give up some awards.
You sound down, Ryan.
It's just crazy that we would have to do that to a movie.
Yeah.
Like, why aren't we doing like a show where here are the 500 movies of 1985. Let's celebrate them all equally.
We intentionally have them face off, and then every single time we're like, this is painful to us. We're not made for this.
We just aren't. We're not strong enough. The two most important things in any movie, but particularly I would say in 1985, are sex and violence. Guys, what did our bracket do better this year? Before I go over the nominees, do you guys think it was a sexier year or a more violent year?
Violent.
Yeah, I thought for sure it was going to be a sexy year. I thought there was going to be a lot of like fun, gratuitous nudity and maybe just like a scene where there's like a topless pool party for no reason. Instead,
The 492 movies that we're not celebrating,
yeah,
full of
All
that.
of that.
and it's good or whatever. That's better. But plenty of violence, man. A lot of arterial blood spray.
Which is pretty sexy in its own way.
Some of the violence was sexy though, and you guys know what I'm thinking about. Lady K.
I'm sure we'll talk about it in a
She
second.
could slice me with her katana anytime.
I wonder if Mishima will also come up as far as that. We also have 6 nominees for Best Sex. I'm going to go through them quickly. Greg, why don't you tell us about the first nominee, and then Mike, if you've got anything after that. It's Paul and June hug and dance from After Hours. This is when Paul meets the mother figure at the very end, and this is the sort of sex that we're talking about here, guys, in 1985.
He sort of like ultimately it's completely non-sexual, right? It's like this mother-son dance, and it's like, what is this man really looking for, and that he's unable to find, and what has like as the movie goes on, it becomes about women who are made grotesque for one reason or another, and age is just like this, at least within the world of the movie, something that like turns these women to this guy into grotesques. And when he is finally able to like actually love in a maternal way this woman, doesn't seem very sexy, but it seemed like a good moment for his soul, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think the whole thing is that he uses that hug to like finally try to figure out what he is looking for, and it turns out that is what he was looking for, and then it's grosser in a whole new way of just like I'm not ready to go meet all these women, I want to be up in that mommy's guts is how I would say it.
And his soul came.
And then his soul came. Mike, why don't you tell us about this very different one? I'm done with talking about mothers and sons. The next nominee is from Back to the Future. It's Marty and Lorraine kiss in the car.
It's almost a horror movie. You don't know how far Lorraine will get or Marty will let her get, and it's terrifying. And Lorraine is such a interesting, unique character, and just like has a lot of gumption. And Marty freezes in a way that I think my face was also frozen literally every time I've seen this movie, of just like, I know what's going to happen, but it's still that same panicked horror watching.
This is definitely a movie like about incest. I feel like people remember it as a movie that hits on some incest themes. This is a movie where incest is foregrounded. Like, will Marty succumb to the temptation of banging his hot mom? Like, that's the entire movie.
Yeah, when they meet, she's already taken his pants off.
Yeah.
He's calling him Calvin.
Looked inside his undies.
Calvin Klein. Yeah.
Inside his
Inside.
undies.
That's where do you write the name?
Like it's a Christmas stocking. Greg, the next nominee is from The Color of Purple. It's Celie and Shug. And I don't know what to do with this one, because are we doing what we think it should have been and what everybody wants, or what Steven Spielberg gave us,
Yeah, I mean, he did technically give us them kissing, so we know, and then like kind of did that weird camera drift away thing, like camera's
Sexy
leaving
camera
now.
drift away.
It was almost like, though, that the camera was like, seriously, Spielberg? Fine. I'm going to drift away then, if you're not going to do anything here.
This scene, more than anything else, it should be beautiful, but kind of feels uncomfortable, and it feels like everybody involved in making it was uncomfortable, and that kind of shows. And it's a shame, because Shug and Celie have a sexy, fun relationship. Celie loves Shug from the moment she first sees that picture of her, and then the drift away kind of makes it feel like, sorry, we didn't do it. Like, we're bad. We didn't get this scene right. But it doesn't quite come together in my mind.
Mike?
See, I think the drift away was playing with so many times in movies that don't want to just show gratuitous topless pool parties. They always show characters making out, and then drift away, and then there's gauzy curtains, and like the strings or saxophone kicks in. So I thought it was playing with that. So it's like trying to make it very clear in the language of film what's happening now.
It is, and yeah, that's a good point, but it's trying to make it clear in the language of film from the 40s. And
Right.
that's what Spielberg is obsessed with. Is he's always just wanted to make Capra movies, and then people were like, "Yeah, but this time you could actually show some stuff. You could have some representation." And he was like, "No, the camera went away. Sorry."
I tried. The camera did its own thing.
Mike, the next nominee for Best Sex of 1985 is Andy and Mikey. Mikey kisses his big brother's girlfriend from the Goonies.
Oh, so yeah, this is Andy's eyes are closed, and Martha Plimpton is just snickering in a different part of the cave watching the whole thing, which adds like a fun, pranky, cuckoldy to the whole vibe. It's very sexual in a way that when you're 12, literally everything is sexual.
I mean, in a world of nominees that are all sons and their mothers, maybe this could move through, Greg. What do you think of the scene?
The problem with the scene is not the scene itself. It's that, like, in legal terms, this is the fruit of the poison tree. And the poison tree is, like, rape culture. And that was just rampant in the movies of the 70s and 80s. So it's like there's nothing wrong with this scene. It's kind of cute in a way. But knowing...
Are they trying to cover their bases from that by having Martha Plimpton
I
be
kind of think, yeah. And isn't that even grosser? Like, so it's just... a lot of this stuff from these movies this year, they weren't so bad in themselves, but they squeezed me out because they were so much like playing with those themes of things that make me feel really uncomfortable.
Greg, the next nominee is Lady K and Hero. Why don't you tell us a little bit about how they handle each other?
Okay, so this is going to sound really weird coming on the heels of that, but everybody in this situation is consenting adults. Lady K is like, she's in a very precarious situation, right? Her plan for revenge is hampered by the fact that her husband suddenly dies, so she has to jump ships. And the way she knows how to do it, because she's a practiced study of character, is through a mix of humiliation and inflicting pain and then delivering pleasure. And I just feel like the way it's done really does. There's like a very BDSM air to this scene. And as awful as she is, if you have any sort of inclinations into that at all, it's a vibe. It really is. It is a vibe. And you're also seeing a master at her craft. Like, not just the performance of the actress, but of knowing that the character is manipulating this guy. He knows he's being manipulated because she's not that subtle about it, but there's nothing he can do to resist her. It's something.
If it was modern, he would just be Venmoing her.
little pay piggy.
Yeah.
The other thing too about it is that I bet that Lady Sue, Hero's current wife, is not a demon in the sack. So this is probably fucking blowing his mind as far as what sex can be.
Yeah, he's always like, please hold a sword against my throat. And she's like, that is not the Buddha way. I will not do that.
I do have to say, we never really know someone's sexual self.
That's true.
Yeah,
That's
so
true.
I don't want to judge. She might really throw it back.
Your final nominee, Mike, this is for you, is it's from Mishima, and it's Razors During Sex, in a movie that handles sex as uncomfortably as its lead does.
Mm-hmm.
This is what we get as far as like, here's normal heterosexuality, right?
Yeah, this is definitely the bags of sand of this era where you're trying to describe normal heterosexuality, and it's an older woman. So you get that part. There's the mother of 85 that's everywhere.
Oh, for
here.
sure.
And there's the pain in the blood because he's so beautiful. So she's cutting him up while they have sex.
There's this component of lust, and it might just be because, none of us have ever experienced lust outside of a broken culture. So there is at least this character of lust within our culture, and it seems like within Japanese culture as well, that is as much like a force for the generation of new life as it is this weird destructive, like, I love you, I love you so much, I want to eat you up, right? It's like where the wild things are. Like, something that loves but also wants to consume. And I think that that is really brought across very well in this Mishima. In his whole life, he wanted to be consumed for artistic passion. He wanted to be transformed really into that passion. And that's what is symbolized there. He wants to actually be dismembered, cut apart by someone or something he loves so much, and just be like that John Donne poem. He wants to be battered into pieces by beauty and God and truth,
Beer battered.
Mike, are you glad we're not doing points on this episode? Did you hear how much he fucking would have just crushed you right there? That was like 4 or 5 different classic literature references right there. All right, gentlemen, your nominees are from After Hours, Paul and June hug and dance. From Back to the Future, Marty and Lorraine kiss in the car. From The Color Purple, Celie and Suge on the bed. From The Goonies, Andy and Mikey kiss. From Ron, Lady K and Hero suck necks. And The Razors during sex during Mishima. Greg, what do we think is going to do it?
I'm hoping I carried the day. Before this season was even over, while I was watching this movie, I was petitioning for Lady K to take this away, because this is exactly the type of, my wife is very nice and I'm glad I'm married to a nice woman, but this is the type of woman that really gives me pause. Someone who's just bad and mean.
Yeah, how much on and off air you talked to us about Lady K. We all commiserated how happy we were that you met your wife at 19.
So that I saved so I was saved from,
because it's so clear you would be that, what did you say, pay piggy?
No, I believe Findom is a perversion of a beautiful thing.
Mike, did you say your answer, or did you just judge Greg's relationship?
Yes. Yeah, it's got to be Lady K. I'm all in on Greg's arguments.
The winner is, it's Celie and Suge from The Color Purple.
I'm shocked.
I'm shocked.
I guess it's a healthy one.
That has to, no,
that got points.
It has to be the thing where it's in our brains more than what we saw on the screen, right? Like,
yeah.
You know, it may not be artfully pulled off, but it's clear that the message there is these are two people who see the value in each other and build each other up and want to be better and more loving for each other. And it is so clear that for Celie, who has experienced sex so many times in her life but has never experienced loving and caring sexuality. So I think all that stuff might potentially come through, even though it's awkwardly handled.
and if he left the camera on longer, like based on what we know about how time goes on and, you know, changing attitudes, he might have done it. He might have done something unintentional or even intentional where it was like judgmental and othering and look how freaky they are. And what we have now is something that it as much as we should have gotten more, it does stand the test of time this way. The next one is Violence, which is for me and Mike the opposite of the last award, but apparently for Greg the same. Your first award is from your first nominee, I'm sorry. Greg, we're going to go to you here. It's George knocks out Biff in Back to the Future.
Yeah, you know, there's things about this that are maybe problematic, but watching him like curl that fist and just get ready to do it, and you just wanted to see this guy Biff get knocked on his ass this entire movie. And as that fist curls, like you can feel, especially if you're a dork like I am and always will be, you can feel your own hand curl, and you're like, I'm gonna punch Biff in the nose. I'm not gonna be a dork forever. And although I will be, Marty McFly will not.
But now
as
dork
he's
could punch
laughing,
somebody.
He gets punched in the face as he's laughing as hard as he can and looking towards the woman that he was in the process of molesting or raping. Mike, what do you think? Good nominee here?
That's great violence. That's violence everybody can get behind.
Mike, the next nominee is from The Breakfast Club. It's the story that Andrew tells of how he tapes up the nerd's butt.
Look, sometimes violence, while troubling and problematic, is also very funny. And this captures all of that. What I like about this story and what the movie does well is in a Revenge of the Nerds and anything else, it would only be a joke. And the way Emilio Estevez tells it is you can see how worried he is that he has this inside of him. I
definitely saw Emilio Estevez trying to not make it a joke. I do not think he was successful. It was still a hilarious story because that kid was a nerd and Emilio Estevez is a nerd, and they're all nerds taping butts together.
I do think it's a very good example of like the kind of violence that seems to make sense for actual teenagers. You know, I feel like in a more melodramatic movie, it would be like, I hit a kid with my car and just kept driving. But this is the kind of idly very terrible thing kids really do to each other, and it sounds funny, but would be very painful. So I thought it was like a well-chosen thing.
And definitely at that level of parents and administration being boys will be boys and like not do anything about it. And so then you get to keep doing it.
Yeah, not thinking about that poor kid's now hairless ass cheeks.
Mike, you would do anything for hairless ass cheeks. Greg, the next nominee is from The Color Purple. It's the Juke Joint Brawl.
Yeah, okay. There are some weird tonal shifts in this movie, and I don't know what tone it finally should have gone with. But the juke joint brawl, from the whole way it is set up with like people like, all right, good night, and like, oh, gotta go for
Time to go.
the piano player. It's really hard to deny that this is like a fun, old school Hollywood like bar fight, and it's really executed. Like so much of Spielberg gets executed near perfectly.
Yeah.
in a vacuum, every scene is perfect.
Yeah.
It's when you look at the entire movie.
What the fuck? Yeah, it's this historical drama just gets a dash of Tex Avery, and you're like, okay, let's do that.
So we're doing this now. Everyone in this movie is a person, right, Steve?
And then Oprah had that story where Spielberg said, forget about the lines, and she was like, I improvised every one of those punches in the juke joint. I did that all myself. Mike, the next nominee is from Mishima. It's Razors During Sex.
Yeah, it's sexy, it's violent, everybody's going down in flames together. What's better than that?
Are you describing me right now?
You're sexy and violent?
And we're all going down in flames. This is so much more, and like the sex part aside, just the razor part is so much more bothersome to me than somebody getting punched or shot. Like,
Yeah.
how little skin
Little
you can
cuts.
do with, yeah. Oh, like it is.
I do have to say, there's a part later where he takes off his shirt right near the end of their time together, and he is so messed up. Like, she
Yeah.
really does start like doing a lot of stuff to him.
That was not a one-time thing.
Yeah.
She probably ignores the safe word a couple times. It's so sexual and so violent. Like Fall Out Boy could just say exactly what happened in the scene. And it would be a hit song of theirs.
Greg, the final nominee for Best Violence is The Burning of the Castle from Ron.
Okay. Dang. Second horniest moment in this entire movie. This is not a scale model of a castle, or if it is, it seems like a very big version. They burn this castle to the ground, and this dude comes tottering out of it and walks away from it so slowly. And there is not a moment of it that you're not just like, yes.
There's not a moment of it that's CGI. Like, that's a
Yeah.
fucking real castle with real fire and a real dude who they probably didn't even tell they were shooting yet. Just walking around going, what the fuck?
Is this my trailer? Akira? Is this my trailer? And there's that whole added element to it of, it reminds me of the Hamilton line, I couldn't seem to die. He is sitting in this, and there's arrows just flying right by his head, but none of them seem to hit him. He just can't, he doesn't sustain any damage because he's cursed, and the curse is that everything will fall apart around him. And that is just, like, that is brought out perfectly in this scene.
And then, yeah, there's the other thing, too, that we've been talking about war a lot with some of these movies of how it's necessary but awful, or isn't necessary, blah, blah, blah. There's no, like, let's hit the castle a little bit, and then he'll come out with hands up. It's decimate everything. Like, we're going to just destroy this. And then when the old man finally comes out, the surprise on their face of like,
Yeah.
what the...
They are
That's not what we wanted.
terrified that the thing they've been after for the last 45 minutes straight just isn't happening, so they let him go.
Well, and it's not just like a failure of their strategy. It's the whole reason that they did that is so they didn't have to face their father's face. They could just move on with their life. That's why they did that to that building.
And they thought he would commit seppuku, and he tried to, but he just couldn't find a sword. And so they just have, like, there's no framework for what they're supposed to do when he just wanders out of the castle. Like, they know what they do if he comes charging out with a sword. They know what they do if he kills himself in the top of the tower. What if he just comes out and doesn't look at anybody and just walks away? And they're like, we don't know.
Because it's the ultimate version of parents saying, I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed. Like, that's what happened
You
right
couldn't
there.
even kill me.
All right, guys, Best Violence. We have George knocks out Biff. We have Andrew taping butts together. We have the juke joint brawl. We have razors during sex, and we have the burning of the castle. Where do we think, Mike? Who's going to win?
I think the burning of the castle is just so big and epic and all-consuming.
Yeah, that's
Greg?
like that Gone with the Wind at, Atlanta scene. I mean, I don't hear it like mentioned in that same breath, but that's like what it is. That's like one of the most epic shots I've ever seen in a movie.
More so than Andrew's butt taping story.
More than that, even, Ryan. Yeah, if they had shown that, probably that would win.
Pretty epic.
Yeah.
And the winner is the burning of the castle from Ron. This is the most slam dunk award of the night. It's really like it's something to behold. And then think about how this is 85 and. Like you said, Greg, that's just a real ass castle. Like,
Just look at this historic castle. Watch us burn it.
Fuck it.
all right, we're gonna take a break. And when we come back, we're gonna kick out another movie. This part of the bracket actually went chalk, at least right here. It's the number 2 seed versus the number 3 seed. It's Breakfast Club versus Brazil. How long do you guys want to do this segment for?
3 seconds.
Yeah,
All right.
this is for this late in the game. This is about as slammy as a D can be.
These three be slamming.
I mean, if I feel like that when Breakfast Club passed up Mishima, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Then all we did was send it to its death.
Yeah,
You know,
even Breakfast
like-
Club just kept sprinting. It's like, don't turn around, don't let them know maybe they made a mistake. Just keep going.
Very cleverly written movie. Kids, I hear, still identify with it, so I guess that blows what I said about it out of the water. I mean, it's still people still identify with it. I feel like it definitely picks a level of reality, and I think it does a pretty okay job staying within that level. It's funny at times. It definitely had a big cultural impact, but Brazil just feels like so much more important, so much more interesting, so much more complex. You could watch it 3 more times and still feel like you're missing things. It's got all
Not
that.
4. I like the fact that you said for Breakfast Club, well written. I do think it's a very interesting script. We have to give credit to the fact that it registers with so many people. The filmmaking is there. It does the shit that it needs to do to make the script happen. But there is something about that script that like people really grab onto, and they feel like this is the first time and potentially the only time I've ever really been seen in a movie.
Yeah, it's interesting because everybody talks about how the kids are a change in every generation. Things are different, and there's no cliques anymore. But for kids of every 13-year-old group of kids will cling to this
35
the same
years
way.
later.
That it just means we all at that age feel like you're one of these 5.
And I think it's important to note too that there is a gap. Like Goonies is a bunch of 12-year-olds. That's for 7 or 8-year-olds. And then Breakfast Club is like 17-year-olds. That's for 12 or 13-year-olds. 17-year-olds, I don't know if they're going to grab onto this if they see it for the first time. But when you're 12 or 13, the characters are also 12 or 13
Right.
mentally and dialogue-wise, and it will touch you in a way that you really haven't felt before.
Yeah, 17-year-olds are specifically into that cutting scene in Mishima.
Right. Only. But yeah, Brazil, it's up against Brazil. I'm going to call it. Greg, Brazil or Breakfast Club?
Brazil.
Good fake out. Mike, are you going to
I was
fake me
gonna
out?
do that joke. The Brazil Club.
Mike, I need your answer for permanent record.
Oh, Brazil.
It's Brazil. I say Brazil as well, even though it doesn't matter. Brazil moves on to face down Back to the Future in the finals. And I would love to get to the finals, but we have more awards. We are back. Breakfast Club is gone. I'm not sure it holds the same resonance for us that when Come and See left. I don't know. How are you guys feeling right now?
I'm doing okay, Ryan. I'm ready to keep going. I don't need to cry.
You are ready to
Sop
keep
up my
going
tears with pancakes.
from your pancake drawer. We have to move on to the 3 most major awards of the night. It's Best Actor, Best Actress, and Best Film of 1985. We're going to start with Best Actor. Not nominated here, gentlemen, is Danny Glover and
Wow.
Tatsuya Nakadai, who played the old man from Ron.
No way, really?
Neither one.
Wow.
Danny Glover plays a single note, and then at the end he plays a forced, jarring note
I don't think he does.
that rang untrue.
Wow.
So
I disagree
that's
wholeheartedly.
I so strongly disagree with that. Ryan, do you want to disagree first?
Yeah, I think we figured out why Danny Glover's not nominated here,
Yeah.
Greg. But yeah, I would say that I get how people complain about the character, but what Danny Glover does with what he is offered is, I would say, and this is going to sound crazy, better than his performance in Lethal Weapon 2. Would you agree with that,
Whoa.
Greg?
Whoa. That's a lot to say. I will say, I mean, we see him not just as a monster. We see him as a part of him that is charming, that knows how to use the fact that he's very handsome to charm. And then he even does this thing where when we see him charming, Nettie already knows, like, no, I don't want to be charmed by you.
Yeah.
And so then his like clownish antics towards her have this really like scary tinge to them. I don't know. I think he took a character that had been rendered pretty flat by the script for the movie and absolutely breathed dimension into it.
Because when he and Nettie meet, Nettie is like 10 years older than she actually is mentally, and when he acts around Nettie, is 10 years younger. And watching that happen, I think that takes a lot of skill. And then what about old man Ron? Nobody surprised there?
I guess I'm a little surprised. Or I guess I'm not surprised. I just think he was doing such a stylized form of acting. We didn't talk about it on the show, and I kept meaning to bring it up, but there are moments where it's supposed to be serious. I think it's supposed to be serious, but it's very funny. Remember when he jumps off the cliff and he lands in the sand below, it cuts to him and he's just sitting there up to his waist in sand, like very still with his like Beetlejuice hair flying everywhere. And that's like a laugh out loud moment. And I think that there are those moments with him where the actor is being as serious as he can be, but there's a little cultural dissonance. And so to us, it seems absurd in a way that doesn't seem like it's the effort of the movie to make it absurd, but it's difficult because the movie is kind of trying to make him seem absurd. I don't know. I think a cultural thing got in the way there, I guess.
I do too. I'm wondering if the 5 nominees that we're going to get actually did turn in better performances or if they turned in more American performances. And if they did, then that's another thing we can feel guilty about. Mike, the first nominee for Best Actor of 1985 is Griffin Dunne from After Hours.
Yeah, I think he does a lot throughout the movie to capture that. Throughout the movie, you go through like, okay, this is my normal movie protagonist to like, oh, this is a pathetic man baby, but I'm still intrigued by what he's doing. And like, he should be way more famous than he is.
And then let us also not forget to add on to your list, him sitting on the bed of Rosanna Arquette, like screaming at her, like, shut the fuck up, bitch, I'm a man thinking, you know? Like, there's a lot of these elements going on that all equal this. It's seemingly this typical everyman, but it's not. If you watch it again, it's not just this vanilla guy that we typically get in movies like this.
Right.
Yeah, any problem I had with the movie was not a problem I had with him. He's doing exactly what he's supposed to.
Your next nominee is Michael J. Fox from Back to the Future. Greg, what do we think?
Oh, an amazing performance. So funny, so disarming, really. Like, what's good about this performance is we think Marty is very cool. We think that he's funny. We think that he's hip. The audience does, I think, at least. And it's so clear in the world, he is not that way. He's awkward, and people think he looks ridiculous, and they don't like his style, and they don't care that he can sketch all over the neighborhood. And I think that it's hard to play that disconnect where his world sees him one way, but the audience sees him another.
I think I probably brought this up on the Back to the Future show, but it reminds me so much of when I was a kid. My feelings towards Marty McFly are the same as my feelings towards Bart Simpson. I thought they were the two coolest, rudest dudes, and Raphael, I guess. And it turns out that in their world, they're just fucking nerds. They're just fucking nerds who should get pushed around and beat up.
Yeah, I think it makes sense that he is close friends with Doc Brown because the kind of kid who gets along really well with adults, especially older adults, is hated by kids. It's like he has just like,
and you know this how?
Jokes out of time.
You're talking about like scientists or lunch ladies or anybody like that?
Yeah, from scientists to lunch ladies. If you get along with them, the kids will not like you.
Do you guys think this is too much star over performance? Like, is this just Michael J. Fox's persona, or do you guys think it worked well enough where he could take this down?
I think he does a good enough job where he could take it down for sure. I see what you're saying, but I think he's got some amazing line reads in this, and the movie basically the camera's pointed at him, and he has to carry it, and he does.
Agreed.
Mike, the next nominee is Alexei Kravchenko from Come and See.
Yeah, I mean, this is for best performance, and this kid was just actually scared shitless.
Just him on the set the entire time. Get out of my way.
Harry Potter.
He was just scared and terrified the whole time. But what he does with the the camera is super zoomed in on his face, and he doesn't go too big or broad ever with it, and he's a kid. Like, it's mind blowing.
Is this the reverse of Michael J. Fox? So it's star and performance for Fox, and then with this, it's performance and real life movie battling your face and your persona until you want to die.
Yeah, if this kid really is just a great actor and not a traumatized individual, then we've done him a great disservice. But a lot of times, it feels like you're looking at a kid who is just like, what the fuck is going on? Like, are the adults around me like going to protect me? I'm not sure. And the answer is, to a point, yes. Oh, a scotch.
The next nominee, Greg, is from Mishima. It's Ken Ogata.
And he is Mishima.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was his life in 4 chapters.
In 4 different chapters. I really liked his performance because we got to see him as like the leader of a group, and in that we see him like maybe being the thing that he always dreamed he could be. But we also get another scene where like he's dancing at a gay club with a guy and maybe his boyfriend, and the boyfriend touches his sides and says like, "You're getting squishy," and he just like takes one step back, and he doesn't like Tony Soprano out, obviously, right? He's a very reserved guy. I have never seen someone look so hurt in my entire life. And then the guy, his boyfriend or partner or whatever, goes over to his house to say like, "Dude, I'm sorry." And again in that, he's like, "You can't talk about me that way." And I couldn't believe the subtlety with which he was able to deliver that message. And this is the same stupid idiot that then goes and like stands on top of a military base and is like, "We got to make the Emperor in charge again, everybody." And it doesn't feel like a stretch to see those two things contained in this one guy, and it's because of this performance.
This is the same stupid idiot who would then go on and write a story about a woman cutting into his perfect body to like, you know, like instead of being all fleshy or whatever, like, I'm going to take razors and I'm going to change you this way.
Dude,
it's almost like all of his stories shined a little light on who Mishima was.
Oh shit!
Every chapter. Oh no,
Mike, where are you at with Ken Ogata?
Yeah, we always want the two things at once, and there's like a level of steel in him, and you do understand why he is charismatic enough to inspire these young men to make this weird militia, and he is a pathetic weirdo, and you see that equally in there.
And I mean, but like the first half of the movie, we were like, this guy's a hero. He's basically Rambo. He's going to change the country. And then at the end,
context matters.
Yeah, dude.
My coldness towards this movie, or how I feel it left me cold, I thought that it did have a lot to do with the performance, but now thinking about it, Paul Schrader made decisions, and Ken Ogata perfectly carried them out. I would not take Ken Ogata's Best Actor award away from him because of my feelings towards Mishima. You know, like,
yeah,
he fucking destroyed. Mike, the final nominee for Best Actor is Jonathan Pryce from Brazil.
Yeah, again, an everyman role. When you think about it the way Griffin Dunne is, I think what both of these shine a light on is when you think everyman, you think vanilla, and they both highlight like, no, you're also maybe Pathetic Men is a sub theme of 85. He's just a piece of shit. Like, I could see, we talked about on the show why people think he's a hero, and he's so not a fucking hero. He's a guy who thinks he is, but he never really does the bold or heroic thing. But he still stays compelling enough to watch.
Well, I would say the person who is most bold or heroic in movie history is Indiana Jones, right?
Yes.
The way he ran away from them. I would see how that sort of hits home, where your life sucks, and instead of making your life better, you just are above everyone else and point out how their life sucks until you feel better about yourself. That was fun to watch. Greg, where are we at Jonathan Pryce?
Part of what I think is so good about this performance is, if you remember from The Simpsons, Krusty says about Sideshow Bob at first that the reason he's funny is because Sideshow Bob actually has dignity, and it's funny to watch somebody with dignity get humiliated. And I think that's what Pryce really brings like to this role, is he has just enough dignity. He's not like proud or anything, but he has just enough dignity, especially because he's using that English accent, to where like when life pantses him in the way that everybody gets pantsed in Brazil, it's that much funnier because he's just enough of like a gentleman that to see him get hurt really is hilarious. Yeah, when he steps on that rake, it's really enjoyable.
And then, yeah, every time that every 10 minutes in the movie where we think that we're really rooting for this guy, there's a scene like where he brings the widow the papers.
Yeah.
And she's freaking out, and he's like, okay, just sign the papers. It always brings us back on him, and he kills it. All right.
We don't even have to bring the papers, really. It's actually kind of nice if somebody does, if you think about it. He clearly wants to be thanked so bad.
Gentlemen, your nominees are Griffin Dunne, Michael J. Fox, Alexei Kravchenko, Ken Ogata, and Jonathan Pryce. Greg, who's taking this down?
I'm going to say I hope it's Ken Ogata. I don't think he's going to, but I really hope, thinking about it and our conversation about him, I hope he does.
Mike?
Knowing us, I think it's going to be Alexei.
And your winner for Best Actor of 1985 is Alexei Kravchenko from Come and See. And I think that our reasons for keeping Come and See out of the final two, they make sense. But this is a way to prove to everyone that we saw something new and different. And this performance was as new and different as the filmmaking was.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah.
We can't sit here and be like, we don't think he was actually performing.
Yeah.
I'm glad he got the award, because like that's not up to us to say. Like, what is on the screen? What's on the screen is a very affecting performance.
And I don't think if you put any of these other fine actors in the role, they would not deliver what Alexi delivered.
You don't think Michael J. Fox could have done
Michael J.
this?
Fox as Flavia.
Alexi could be Michael J. Fox, but Michael J. Fox could not be Alexi. Hey guys,
I don't know if
what are you
Alexi could be
doing?
Michael J. Fox.
Next up, gentlemen, is Best Actress, and I want you to note how I am not saying there was anybody not nominated. These were the 5 that we got, and most of them are supporting. It was not a healthy year for lead performances. The first one we're going to start with, Greg, is Whoopi Goldberg from The Color Purple.
This whole movie relies on whether or not we can care enough about someone who is a shadow, and if we can actually want to stick around and hear what their story is. And to watch Celie grow is one of the most enjoyable parts of this movie. When she finally stands up and you hear her voice and you see her win and she gets reunited with her sister, you've like watched this person go from the very bottom of the totem pole to finally just like able to stand on her own. And Whoopi Goldberg doesn't do that in 2 moves. She does it in like hundreds of little moves across all these different scenes. And she really very slowly builds this growth in a way that it's hard to do as an actor, slowly build growth.
She's it. She's the thing. Like Spielberg's like, I'm going to change the tone whenever I want. And Whoopi puts her head down and says like, all right, I will be the through line then. I will slowly
I won't
grow.
change the tone.
And I'm going to assume that it was not shot in chronological order. So she was like, I will be the anchor for this movie.
Yeah, it's so clear how this was a career, like, invigorating, star-making role.
Creating, yeah.
And it's also baffling looking at what she is now known for, that she started with something so subtle and deft. I love Sister Act, but this is not what you see in Sister Act.
But see, Mike, this is what you yourself are always saying, though, Mike. You're the one who it says more than anybody else. It's the acting in comedy scenes is harder in some ways than the acting in dramatic scenes. And so here we have an example of that. Someone who comes in as drama and then sort of evolves to comedy rather than the other way around.
Yeah, boy.
I mean, just the fact that, like, do less. That was something that she was able to hear and accomplish. Always do less is, I think, very impressive. Mike, the next nominee is from Brazil. It's Kim Greist.
This is the love interest?
Yeah.
The truck driver. So she was in it. She was certainly the lead in this movie. And gosh darn it, I can't think of a more 80s type actress who you would never think of or see again. Sorry, Kim Greist.
Should we just cut her right now?
I got nothing nice to say. Nothing mean. She was
had
fine.
2 different ways she had to play, I thought, which is interesting, though, which is the imaginary version that kind of like loves him, and then the real version that is just like, get the fuck out of my truck. I'm gonna kick you to death, idiot. And, so she had those 2 moves. That was good.
It's definitely that, Greg, what you just said is definitely something I wish more boys had seen about how what you think girls are acting like is not how they actually are. But this is such a miscast. This is such a...
Yeah.
Let's move on. Greg, next up is Molly Ringwald from The Breakfast Club.
Molly Ringwald's not my favorite actress in this movie, but I think that maybe an argument could be made that it's easier to play Ali Sheedy's role. It's easier to play the quiet, really reserved person rather than Claire, who's like kind of living out loud. Like, okay, I know that you guys think I'm a bitch, and I'm not going to change who I am because of that. So I guess you could say that I'll own being a bitch. But at the same time, you can see that she's taking psychic damage from that, and it is really wearing her down relatively quickly. And she's already under so much stress for just like a high school girl who you can almost forget she is. So that's a lot to do in one performance.
Yeah, she carries so much of, like, she is the mean girl in any other movie, and injecting humanity into that isn't just the script, it is what Molly does with that.
I mean, I think that the key scene is there's a leap that the script takes. There's one scene where she goes from lipstick in the bra to Bender making fun of her, and there's a lot of stuff. It feels like it's cut. Like everybody just makes jumps in this conversation, but her reaction to that of like, I can't take this belittling anymore. I think that's her for your consideration scene, I think, in the movie. All right, Mike, the next one is Ali Sheedy from The Breakfast Club. You have said this is basically you. Tell us why.
Yeah, just like weird for weird's sake. Damn straight, I'm gonna make a bologna sandwich, then chuck that bologna right at a statue's face so I can pour pixie sticks on the sandwich. Like,
what was your dandruff situation in high school, Mike?
Oh, so bad.
Yeah. I was gonna say that's like the number one way in which I identify with her. If I do that thing, if I shake my head over a drawing, same result, buddy.
Yeah, once in a math class, 2 kids were behind me, and I heard somebody whisper, and I could feel the point, lice, and somebody else said dandruff. Not in defense of me, but somehow in their tone, dandruff was worse than lice. So in a lot of ways, I was Ali Sheedy, but I just don't think she gets that much to do, and she doesn't do that much with what she is given.
I mean, Ali Sheedy is the go-to. If you don't like this movie, it's all revolved around Ali Sheedy. It's how they treat her when she's the quote-unquote freak. It's how they treat her when she puts on the makeup. Like,
well, when she puts on the makeup, that is, I will always say that's the worst makeover I've ever seen in my entire life. It makes me so angry.
Yeah.
But when she says they ignore me, come on, that's work.
There's a lot in that sentence.
There, yeah. And you don't see it. Like I don't feel like it seems strained. I feel like that's like a real emotional response.
The other thing too is, as opposed to Molly Ringwald's lipstick bra scene, and as opposed to Bender's Banner Day in the Bender household, like they give these speeches. For Ali Sheedy, she just talks about all the sex she has, and then at one point she's walking through the hall and she's like, "Oh, I just made all that shit up." Like that's her monologue. That's her big point. Is like, "Oh no, it's all bullshit. I don't care. What else do you want to talk about?" The final nominee, Greg, is Leah Thompson from Back to the Future. These are supporting roles. It's just we had to do this.
Yeah, man. I feel like we didn't complain enough now in '85 about what terrible representation there was. Like women are over half the people. over half the people are women. So why are there so few roles?
Not according to movies.
She's doing the thing here where she's, you see her first as a mom, and she's got on like the way too much makeup, and like, I'm an old lady now because I'm 38 years old. But her sort of like Tina Belcher level, like, I am here for boys energy, I found extremely endearing. I was such like a horny high schooler, and in a boy it's like it's gross and weird. I find in a girl it's so endearing when they're like boy crazy in the way that she is, and she's just very like upfront about it,
Yeah,
like that's just
so
what I'm about
so
right
open
now.
about it.
Yeah.
I think the way she starts at sad mom, goes to horny Tina, and then into like healthy mom, all of it feels real and natural. Like, I think Leah Thompson should get more credit and should be in more things.
That is for sure. Well, we haven't celebrated Caroline in the City yet. We should have a show
can't wait for
about
that
that show.
spin-off
I
show.
have
Yeah.
seen literally every single episode. Okay, so
Is it better than Suddenly Susan? We don't know. Frankly, we don't want to know. Gentlemen, your nominees are Whoopi Goldberg, Kim Grease from Brazil, Molly Ringwald and Ali Sheedy from The Breakfast Club, and Leah Thompson from Back to the Future. What do we think is going to happen here?
I think my chair is going to break soon.
Your chair's going to break soon?
I think my chair is going to break.
Okay. Well,
That's just independent of what. That's just what I think is going to happen next.
okay, so
But I'm thinking, why you asked?
I have you talking about your furniture. Mike is Arsenio Halling, and so
For
I'm just going to...
whatever reason.
I'm saying one of the names of one of the actresses. I wasn't saying Leah. I say Whoopi's going to win. That's my
Oh yeah,
prediction.
for sure, Whoopi.
And your winner for Best Actress of 1985 is Whoopi Goldberg from The Color Purple, which means we gave that movie infinitely more Moody's than the Oscars gave it Oscars.
Oh, you said the name.
Sorry, the
You weren't supposed to say the name. They were the Voldemorties the whole time.
Oscars that shall not be named. When we come back, this is it, guys. It's the movie of 1985. Gentlemen, your number 1 seed is Back to the Future. Your number 3 seed is Brazil. Let me ask you this, first and foremost. Did you always see this coming? Like, did you think that this was going to happen the entire time?
After
Yeah.
the Brazil show, yeah.
There were just so many movies that started with the letter B. I knew a B movie had to take it all down.
Do you wish that it was Jerry Seinfeld's B movie?
Yeah, if it came out in 85, for sure.
This was one of the seasons at the very beginning of it. It felt like with a number 1 seed like Back to the Future, is it a waste of our time to do the whole show? So that felt like the way from the beginning. And then when we watched Brazil, I had seen Brazil before, but I had not like seen Brazil before. When we watched that, I was like, whoa, we've never seen a movie even half as good as this.
And just so the three of us know, like for like an on-air meeting, if we think that Back to the Future is the first seed and it's going to destroy, so let's not do it. That means that we would not have been able to watch Ron, Mishima, Come and See. Like, let's just do the year.
Yes.
You know?
Always
So
do
it
the
really-
year. The year will surprise you. Brazil gives everything we would like. I can't remember what episode we said it in, if it was last week or this week, but it's straddling that line between popcorn and art. And fuck, man, if you're a dummy, you're going to love this movie because it'll give you just enough of that Mad Max juice. And if you are smart, you're going to fucking love this movie because you're going to look outside and say, it is happening now. Oh my God.
But it remembers us lowly, stupid action fans, right?
Yes.
And it gives us the big samurai fight scene. It remembers the lovers of comedy. This movie, if it didn't have the comedy, it would be Come and See, and Come and See is so arduous, right? But this movie is like, we'll keep you laughing sometimes, and then ultimately it ends, and it's bleaker than Come and See, actually, because Come and See, there's this idea that like maybe civilization's going to carry on and things are going to be okay. In Brazil, the end of the movie is like the only escape is insanity. That's the bleakest message around.
Yeah, it's civilization will carry on, and isn't that horrifying? Is their message?
But the thing that I don't see happening here, and maybe I'm wrong, is I love Back to the Future, and it always felt like it was going to come here. Come all the way to the end. But can we say all that stuff that we've said about Brazil and then say that Back to the Future is what? It's more 1985? I mean,
I'm not even sure if that's true,
Right.
It is so 85 and it's so iconic in general and for the year it came out, but so is Brazil. I feel like that Brazil has all of Back to the Future's punches and then other punches to give.
Mm-hmm.
I've been thinking lately about how we kind of live in the world that the 80s was trying to warn us about, in part. Like punks were trying to warn us about, and people who were talking about race were trying to warn us about, and people who were talking about gay rights were trying to warn us about. That, like, even if things seemed like they were slowly getting better in some ways, that we were seeding through capitalism, let's say, and through authoritarianism, like a world that was going to be really bleak if you gave it 40 years. And that's the world we live in now, and that's what Brazil is telling us about. Brazil is warning us of the kind of world that we didn't break away from this,
Right.
We didn't listen to these messages. We went with the fat cats. We went with the political machine. We didn't go of the way the artists and the punks wanted us to. And now we live in Brazil world, basically.
Then I guess my biggest problem with Brazil is that when I was watching it, even 85 or 2020 or anywhere in between, then there should have been flashing lights on the samurai scenes that said, like, in 2020, you'll be living this exact life, but you will not have the samurai battles. Like, the cool parts of this movie, you will not be part of your life. It's just the shitty parts.
I play as a samurai multiple times a day. I mean, that's a video game. That's the internet culture.
But that's the internet culture. But what this movie gets wrong is that our own creativity will still be in there enough to hide us from the horrors, and none of us have that anymore. It's just you got to tap into Netflix or video games.
We are going to play D&D in 2 hours.
We are podcasting right now. We're podcasting right now, so we don't have to think about how the world is.
We are going to go escape into our own world
Yeah.
of magic and imagination.
Yeah, I think the real lesson is if your spokesperson is somebody named something goofy like Jello Biafra, nobody's going to fucking listen to your real message. Get a better name, punks.
Try again, punks. I mean, okay, so how can it be Back to the Future then? Because it feels like we're kind of crowning Brazil here. What's the argument for Back to the Future?
It's the first seed. Like, it gets the least amount of argument. Like, I mean, I can call it right now.
If you say almost anybody on the street, Back to the Future was the movie of 85, they'll be like, you're right.
But anybody that I talk to, they'll be like, oh, good job, dude. Like, way to be super original, I get a lot of shit about Eyes Wide Shut being the movie of 99. Like, a lot of people are like, what the fuck? There's 12 better movies than that.
There's not, though.
Well, yeah, there's clearly not. We've done the science and the screaming.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm just going to call it, and I think I know what the vote is. And Back to the Future, we've talked about it for the last 2 weeks. We talked about it in its episode. It is nearly perfect. It's so much more interesting than it has any right to be. It is, in a lot of ways, the same as Breakfast Club or The Goonies, but when you watch it in the span that we did, or like you did in 85, it's clearly so much more. It's clearly very thoughtful screenwriting and filmmaking. But Brazil is just the shit.
Yeah. New favorite movie.
It's all those things and more. Yeah, I mean, like, this Brazil is not just the movie of the year for 1985. Brazil is now the movie of this show.
Movie of the year.
Yeah, I mean, if we put them all into a big bracket and had them fight,
Oh, I want to.
I think this one would tower over the others.
One of the most horrifying and magical parts of Brazil is that I'm sure people rolled their eyes at back then and thought it was too much, is how fine they are with violence. That the restaurant will blow up and you just be like, a little in our way of eating, thank you.
Yeah.
And I can't think of anything more true in any movie I've ever seen than that.
We just carry on through so much fucking bullshit. That's the problem, is we just keep carrying on. Not everybody, but like I'm guilty of this. You just keep getting up and doing the same shit day in, day out, while you watch things around you absolutely fall apart.
And the crazy thing, Mike, about the thing that you specifically said, watching this movie in the 80s, it was like, oh, this is sci-fi-ish, I guess. And then watching it in the 90s, you're like, oh, that violence is happening in other countries. Like that mall that just exploded was other countries that are doing this. And now watching it today, it's like, oh, that's another state or that's another city. You know, it just keeps getting closer, and we keep rolling our eyes and moving on with our lives in the same way.
Yeah, I'm sure if we made the country watch Brazil, there'd be so many people who are like, Michael Palin's character's the hero. What the fuck are you guys talking about?
Yeah.
He's just doing the good work of the government.
And I want to disagree. Like, I hear that and I want to disagree with it, but it's just clearly true. That's just, that is how it would be received by people who want there to be someone strong and vicious in charge.
I want to say congratulations to Brazil for winning Movie of the Year 1985. I want to say congratulations to Greg for all of your victories this year. I want to say congratulations to Mike for all of your victories this year. And I want to say congratulations to me for not just hosting the season, but, and Mike, I think you'll agree with me, doing such a good job that I have been anointed permanent host, and I will be hosting this show from now on forever. We were going to do 1985 in perpetuity. And no matter what happens, I will be hosting, and we will be talking about 1985. So
we'll see.
For what?
I disagree.
What do you mean?
I think now might be the perfect time to tell you, Ryan, this is a coup.
Wait, hold on. Like, the perfect time to interrupt me is in the middle of my rousing speech?
Yeah. Well, it seemed like you were wrapping up. Like you were going to say goodbye. I don't know if that's the middle of your speech, unless you have several exits. Goodbye, good night, and my speech continues now. Normally, on a good show, and a good host would know this, is at the end of the show, you would say what is happening next season or next week.
I did. Me hosting 1985 forever.
No, see, nobody wants that. We made a promise. It's in our bylaws that we will switch years by many a year every season.
If I'm in charge, I can change the bylaws.
No, these are not norms. These are law. We have no norm-based things. We're all about Denny's and
Denny's, yeah.
So next season we are going to do 2001, and fuck you, deal with it, Ryan.
We're going to do one movie for the entire time? I mean, I love the Kubrick film, but don't you think we should expand from that?
It's the 2001 minute in 2001 minutes. That's what that season is all about. And I will be hosting. How about that? How about them apples?
Well, Ryan, it seems that makes you my competitor.
Oh,
there will be blood.
I get it. Is not that year, but Greg's going to start the season off with a point.
Well, let me just say this real quick, Greg, to you, and I hope that you agree with me that it might seem like me and Greg are against each other, but it's me versus Mike and Greg versus Mike, and Mike can go fuck himself. If everything that I'm hearing about is true, yeah. All right, well, to all of our audience, thank you so much for listening. Take a 4-month break or so, and then come back when we have a different host, because I guess Mike is taking over for Greg, for Mike, for Micah. I just said for Micah. My name is Ryan. Thank you so much for listening. Congrats to Brazil. And, of course, keep watching those movies.